Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Show. You know what? 2021. What is happening today with 2021? I think I'm about to commit a crime. Not just any crime, but a crime interview with Emmy award-winning reporter, WTHR's on Channel 13, Stephen Jefferson. Steve, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing?
You know, we be doing this live, so my mind is like trying to create at the same time. I'm trying to get me an Emmy too, dog.
I'm like,
You say he's going to commit a crime.
I hope it's not burglary.
Right, I was going to call 262 tips.
Steve, give us a little bit about you from Dayton, the poor area of Dayton. Now a major TV reporter and Emmy. I mean, so you're just not anybody. These are, what are the 4 Emmys?
Three. I got 3. Yeah.
Well, I'm shooting you 4. I think you're going to get another one.
I'll take it.
Tell me a little bit about you and the viewers. Let them know about how you became where you at and what drove you to Indianapolis.
Well, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Got a lot of brothers and sisters. You know, Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Wherever he laid
his hat was his home. And you know, I grew up in the projects. You know, crime then wasn't what it is now,
right,
but it was crime.
Right.
You know, at some point, you know, me and my little brother, we were the last 2 left at home. You know, we would sleep on the floor because we didn't know if anybody's going to get to shooting that night and bullets would come through the apartment. But, and then the other side of that, sleeping on the floor, you had to share it with the rats and the roaches. So, you know, in high school, I got exposed to journalism and fell in love with it.
Okay.
And went from newspaper to radio to television and landed my dream job.
When you say the poorest part of Dayton and, you know, Papa was a Rolling Stone, were there any mentors in your journey growing up?
I had relatives who I looked up to. Uncle, you know, my mother's only brother, who basically kept me, you know, out of trouble as much as possible. But grew up in a projects called DeSoto Bass, which has made headlines, you know, for its crime, you know, even now. But yeah, it was a rough, tough growing up. You know, my older brothers, you know, never graduated high school, in and out of jail. But I wanted to be more, wanted to do more. And once I got exposed to journalism, I would tell people in the projects, hey, I'm going to be on TV. And they'll be like, yeah, you're going to be on TV like the rest of us in handcuffs, you know. But was very, very fortunate to have my first TV job in Dayton, Ohio. So, you know, everybody got to see the little boy in the projects, you know, as a TV reporter.
So when your TV reporting job happened in Dayton, was there a reason you just didn't want to stay? Was it because of the trauma that you had growing up in Dayton? It was like, or you just knew there was a bigger market for you?
Yeah, I knew there was a bigger market, and, you know, moving around is indicative of people in my career, you know, in my profession. You move from market to market, and there's a paper chase. You want that money, and you got to go get the money.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for you to live in other parts of the country and experience other communities. So it comes with the job. It comes with the job.
Who was your role models growing up? You know, if you down in Dayton, and believe me, there's a lot of people I know from Dayton, and I never hear anything really motivating about Dayton. No disrespect, but who did you gravitate to? What was gravitating like growing up?
And I know you remember him when I say his name. He has, earned his wings since then. But I grew up watching Daytonian Ed Bradley.
Yeah.
Remember Ed Bradley?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from Dayton. And I grew up watching him on TV and just admired his work. And so, one day I decided, okay, well, I've done newspaper, I've done radio, I want to do TV. So I made a phone call. I started calling people at the TV stations. Mm-hmm. And one person took my call. He was a reporter at the time. His name was Dave Freeman, a white guy who was one of the best reporters in the city. And I asked him, I said, can I come and shadow you at work? And he said yes. And I was blown away. He let me shadow him. And that's when I knew, okay, I gotta have this job. I gotta do this job.
What does shadowing mean? So for the viewers, like what exactly does that entail?
So I met him that morning. When he started his work day. Watched him, go out and put together a story for the 5 o'clock news and get it ready to go on the air. Write it, send it off for editing, and then go live and present it to on the 5 o'clock news. And I was right behind him that whole time. And he did not let that be my last exposure. He kept in contact with me. And of course, then I didn't have a degree. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a reporter. And I applied at all the TV stations without a degree. And they told me, say, son, you got to go get a journalism degree. So I went to Wright State and signed up for their journalism program. They put me on a 5-year track to get my bachelor's degree in journalism. I was so anxious to become a reporter. I finished that 5-year program in 3 years.
Wow.
I took night classes, weekend classes. Back then you could audit classes where you didn't have to actually go, but you do the work.
Right.
And ended up getting a job at the #1 station in Dayton right after graduation. They kept me on because I was an intern, and it was great.
Tell me about, we have a mutual friend that also is from Dayton, your encounter with Miss Angela Kane.
Yeah, Angela Kane was on TV when I was, when I was trying to get on TV.
Yeah.
And we both went to Wright State University. And ironically, I didn't get a chance to get to know her. But then when I moved here to work for the NBC affiliate here, she was here working. And I was just at all that now our paths have come back together.
Did you tell her that you guys went to the same college?
Oh yeah. We knew she knew of me, but we didn't really know each other. But she's an amazing woman.
You're in Indianapolis now, and you're doing a lot of things for the young men in the city. And I want to clarify something so the viewers will know. Your organization that involves mentoring does not necessarily reflect just those of African American heritage. So tell me a little bit about the mentorship that you have in these programs that you have designed for young men is it universal or is it just centralized to Indiana?
Well, it's in one of the programs is centralized to Indiana. The other one, there's a national campaign as well. I mentor 7th through 10th graders for the Center of Leadership Development in a program called Project Mister, which teaches males in that age group male responsibility. Mm-hmm. We talk to them everything about, getting their education, to their social responsibility, to how to deal with law enforcement, everything, and then 11th and 12th graders, I mentor those age groups in the Botelia Military Program, which is under the 100 Black Men of Indianapolis, which is under the umbrella of 100 Black Men of America. Okay. And, the goal is to, mentoring is, the basis and one of the main missions of both of those organizations to make sure that young people, especially young Black males, are getting what they need education-wise so that they can become great members of society.
Why did you decide to do an organization like that? I mean, was it because of the things that you went through growing up as an African American and dating that you said, I'm going to do something different so individuals don't have to walk the path I did? What's the purpose of that?
You're exactly right. I mean, I knew that having a mentor helped me get where I am today. In fact, I was just texting with my mentor from Dayton, Ohio, Dave Freeman. He lives in Wichita, Texas.
You still have a mentor?
Yeah, I still have a mentor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I knew that someone took me under their wings, and I feel it's nothing but my responsibility to do the same, because it's already a proven fact. There's study after study that mentoring works, and young people are more likely to succeed knowing someone that they can talk to, that they can touch, that they could, that they could follow. They're more likely to be successful in their endeavors for both education and life.
Who are some of the mentors that that you can share that is assisting you in mentoring? Is it any famous individuals that have stepped up to the cause?
Yeah, Byron Pitts with ABC News.
Okay.
I used to send him my stories and say, hey, critique this story, break it down, and when he became my mentor, he was so busy, but he took the time because he knew exactly what I needed as a mentor. He knew I needed a mentor like he had a mentor. Mm-hmm. So there are others across the country as well, and I have proteges that work everywhere from small markets to network. And that's what we do in our business, especially journalism.
You deal with crime. I can just imagine being a reporter and probably witnessing and seeing the stuff that you deal with what we're going through now, and you seeing this disarray every day, because this is now your job. It's not like you a food person reporter. You're actually dealing with crime and violence. What's it? How do you connect? I mean, what goes through your mind when all this is taking place? When you look at society as a whole and you see the senseless killings, the senseless violence, the murder, the corona, just in general, what's going through your mind? Because you have to deal with this every day because this is your title.
Yeah, exactly. Years ago, when I was working back in the 90s, I was working in Macon, Georgia. I was a crime reporter.
Not that far from Albany, Georgia.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
And I started covering crime and then meeting victims of crimes. I quickly learned that I was more than just a crime reporter. And I take the job as a ministry because I feel like I can give a voice to a victim, or I can somehow work as a facilitator to make sure that there's justice for that victim, help them tell their story, share their story with the community so that the next person doesn't become a victim, warn them about, a scam or a danger. So it's more than just a job. It's more than just a job. It's a ministry. And sometimes you do a story about someone and the community comes forward to help. Right. And you're not expecting that, but they do. And then sometimes, you meet a mom who's had their child murdered, and she's not the same. You could tell that all she wants is somebody to know how she hurts, that her heart is broken, and she wants to share that story, and you allow her to do that, and you realize, wow, I'm helping, this family, I'm helping this victim, and that is how you deal with it from day to day.
Is there a moment in your life where you had to deal with something that made you question a moment in your life that you go, wow, I wish somebody was there, or maybe just a moment in general that you felt heartbroken, or you couldn't do nothing about, or you tried to do something about?
Absolutely. I've been there. I mean, I years ago, there was a gang of people going on a killing spree in Dayton, Ohio. And at the time, I was working in Macon, Georgia, and I was in the newsroom putting together my story for the day, and all of a sudden, across the Associated Press wire, and back in those days, they used to print out, there was a machine to print out the news alerts. And so I'm in the newsroom, and somebody pulled off from the AP wire a news alert that there was a killing spree in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm like, whoa, that's my hometown.
Right.
And so obviously I monitored, what was happening in my hometown. And then they started releasing the names of the victims, and my nephew's name was on the list. And it was one of the most difficult times in my life, because it was unbelievable. And he was like person number 10, and it was a group of kids going around killing people on dares, and unfortunately, one of the victims, a young lady, asked him, for a ride, and her dare was to shoot him in the back of the head while they were driving, and she accepted the dare and pulled it off. Fortunately, everybody was caught, but just going home for the funeral and all the media being there, it was one of the most difficult times for my family. And that pushes me to help people, because I know I've been there. I've experienced it.
Have you experienced anything in the we had a couple of reporters on, and I asked them the questions. Did you ever feel, being African American, did you ever have to deal with the struggles at your workplace? Because of who you are, the color of your skin, the racial tension. Did you have to feel like you had to change anything about who you are going into your line of work?
Well, I won't say that I had to change who I am, but I do consider myself an advocate for our community, because if our stories aren't told, they won't be told in many cases. Right. And I've worked all over the country. I've had some excellent jobs all over the country in different states. And sometimes I was the only black in the newsroom. And I felt obligated to make sure that our community was covered, and it was covered correctly. In our business, it's known that we can come up with the crew to cover the shooting, in the black neighborhood, but there are challenges when it comes to getting positive stuff covered in our community. Right. And that's been indicative in every station that I've worked at in my career. And I've also had to always fight to make sure that we were represented correctly. For example, if there was a suspect wanted and the police released a description, and the description was, we're looking for a black male with an afro, 200 pounds, 5'10".
Yeah. I know where you're going.
And so I would have to go to management and say, we can't go on there and say that, because I fit the description. Yeah, you fit the description. Yeah. So, I've been successful in getting that changed. And in every community I've worked with our Black Journalists organization. I serve now for, here in Indianapolis as president for the Indianapolis Association of Black Journalists. We're an affiliate of the National Association of Black Journalists, and that's one of the things we do. We advocate for how our community is covered.
Have you seen, with your mentorship, has there been an increase in minorities going into the field of journalism?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things that we do. We actively recruit, at the universities and colleges there. We have student chapters on basically all the campuses here in central Indiana. We that's one of our missions as well. And usually we try to match them up with a working professional to make sure that, that they are following the right steps and taking the right classes and know how to write and doing internships so that when they do break into the business that they're ready.
How much of your input is put into your job? Like, do management really take heed to new ideas that might come from a minority person as how they present the news or new ideas bringing forth?
Absolutely. Contrary to what most people believe, as a journalist, I'm responsible for bringing stories to the table. Whether it's, taking a national story and localizing it, or if it's something in the community, bringing information from people that I've made, contact with. A prime example is how I met you.
Yeah,
do you remember how we met?
We'll get into that next.
That made the news only because I went and said, I got somebody that's
we'll get into that next.
That's getting ready to physically challenge my ability, and it needs to be on the news.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you're physically fit. You exercise, and we met doing a worthy cause, the Bop to the Top, and that was definitely. Did I beat you?
You probably did, but I will say this. And Bop to the Top is a campaign where you climb the stairs at the America One building.
Yeah.
36 flights. And I mean, and for our audience, I went to Andre to train me to get ready for this because I knew that I could not do it. I was that little trained, I think I can. And my goal, I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but my goal was to make it at least halfway. And then I was going to do it all the way next year.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't think I could do it. But you got me ready. I got to give you credit. I got to show you some love. You got me ready. And so when I got to I purposely didn't look at what flight we were on when I was climbing.
Yeah.
And then when I finally decided to look, I was on 18 and I was still breathing. I was still upright.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm going to make it all the way up to the 36th floor. And I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, we had a great team. We had a great team. What was it? Station Matthews, Amara Scott,
and I can't think of the other lady's name, but
Neiman
something.
Yeah,
we had a great team. I remember that. So you're physically fit. I like that, and I remember that. Oh my God, I was struggling trying to get up there, and I've done that several times. When you talk about journalism and your role in the journalism, is there maybe another part of journalism that you haven't explored that you have a passion to do and haven't quite done that yet?
Yes.
What is it?
Podcasts.
I know a guy that could help with that.
It's funny you say that. Everybody goes, podcast. Okay. So why? What would you talk about on podcasts? I'm just curious.
You know what? I tell you, being a crime reporter, I never thought I would meet the people that I have met.
Meaning?
Because crime doesn't discriminate.
Oh.
It doesn't. It hits every segment of the population. I had the honor to go down to go over to Minneapolis, to cover the George Floyd. And that was like the assignment of a lifetime. It was obviously after a very tragic situation. But prior to going, I had been on the telephone with a young lady who actually recorded, the incident involving George Floyd and Officer Shaven. And after talking with her, a couple of days, I knew that I had to go and cover it. And just going to the scene with the thousands of people there was incredible. I had the opportunity to travel to Louisville, Kentucky to cover the Breonna Taylor situation, and that was an amazing assignment as well. I went to, I covered Katrina, Hurricane George, just so many great assignments one of my first big assignments when I was living in Dayton was a 1 million man march. Do you remember that?
I'm not. Yes, I do.
I was being facetious because I know we're in the same age group.
Yes,
so.
I do. I remember that. I wasn't covering it, but yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had an awesome career, and it just so happens that, you know, I do a lot of community work, and I got the opportunity to meet Ben Crump.
Okay.
You know, during an event here in Indianapolis, and we just connected. So then going to Minneapolis and Kentucky and seeing him there and getting to interview him, you know, about those particular situations. Like I said, I've just had a really blessed career, and I can only continue to just help other journalists.
Tell me about this right here.
Emmy. So journalists are awarded Emmys based on our colleagues. Our work is submitted and judged in another market by other journalists, and they are the ones who decide if our work is Emmy worthy. You know, it's an honor to be nominated, but then to actually win that nomination in your category, it just feels good to have your work recognized by your colleagues, and those are real Emmys. Those are the same Emmys they give away in Hollywood. You know, but
what makes you think? What makes you so good at this craft?
I think,
besides putting your passion and your emotions in the with the victims and so forth. What makes the craft that you do so good? Because you got 3 of those.
I think it's being able to do your dream job. By talent, I am an artist. Okay. I love art, and I wanted to be an architect.
Okay.
All growing up, I drew houses. I drew house plans. You know, from the age of 6, already knew what my house would look like because I was an architect and I was going to build it. I was going to design it. But then I got the journalism bug, and that bit me, and I haven't looked back since.
Did you design your house that you're living in now?
No, I left that behind. I left that behind with getting into journalism.
What did you win your Emmys with?
The Emmy, my first Emmy. Keep in mind, I'm a crime reporter, but my first Emmy was for the coverage of a young lady who was I think she was either Avon High School student who disappeared, and they found her body burned in a backyard on the west side of Indianapolis, and her family was just devastated, and they trusted me enough to do the interview about their loved one, and at the time, no one had been arrested. No one had been questioned, and so obviously, you know, I did my story and you know, gave that particular case a lot of exposure, and asked people to call the Crime Stoppers hotline if they had information about her whereabouts, who she had been with, and the tips started coming in, hundreds of them, after my story aired. And I was able to actually break the news of the arrest in that particular case. And I submitted those stories, and my colleagues thought that was Emmy worthy.
What was the other 2 for?
The other 2 was basically a compilation of crime stories. One of them was, I was the one who actually broke the story of Jared Fogle being arrested by the FBI at his home during a raid. I actually got invited along with the FBI agents to go to his house that morning in Zionsville as they raided his house and carried all of the electronics out of his house, and ended up breaking that story.
You went to the the Floyd as one of your assignments, what kind of impact did that have on you to see that unfold when you got there?
That was an incredible assignment. So I went down to Georgia Street where the incident happened. Once we arrived, me and my photographers, we actually drove. And when we first got to Georgia Street, we took our equipment out, we walked to the intersection, and the first person that we came across was an older white lady who had ridden her bike down to Georgia Street. She got off her bike and she put the kickstand down, and then she got on her knees and she started crying and praying.
Really?
She did not know George Floyd, had never seen him before, but she had to be at least 70 years old. It hurt her so much that happened. And that's when it hit me that I was in the epicenter of something that was going to not only change the country, but change the world. An unfortunate incident, but that's when I knew I was covering the biggest story ever.
When you see the stuff like the the Floyd stories, the all the craziness that's going on as a reporter, what goes through your mind?
Everybody deserves the right to feel safe. Everybody deserves the right to not be a victim of crime. And covering crime, you want to either help people to make sure they're playing it safe. You want to send that message. You know what? Whatever you do, follow your gut. Mm-hmm. Because everybody that I've interviewed that's a victim of crime, whether it's something minor, it's a robbery, or their loved one, or they've been shot, they always tell me there was something in their gut that told them that situation wasn't right. And if they had just followed their gut, maybe they could have avoided being a victim. I just feel, it's not just my job to report crime. It's my job to help people through their situation, whether it be finding justice for them, because, somebody's going to call the tip line and tell who did it, or if it's just allowing them to share their story with somebody else.
The pandemic that we just had, it was scary, universal, all over the world. How did your job and what you do as a reporter, how did you guys feel, and what, from your standpoint, what did you feel the protocol should have been, or, just in general, what was your emotions with the pandemic?
I'm glad you asked that question, because at the very beginning, last March, when the pandemic, even before it was classified as a pandemic,
right,
and people started getting COVID, I was frustrated because I felt like I wanted to be a megaphone for everybody that I know, to say, hey, this is real, this is happening. And so I sent an email to the governor. I sent an email to the mayor. I said, what do you think about shutting down the city for a week to stop this disease from spreading? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, I did not expect to hear back.
Really? I
did not expect to hear back, but I did. I heard back from basically both their counsels, their attorneys, and they said, hey, Steve, the mayor has your email, the governor has your email, thank you, and they're gonna talk about doing what you suggested. Mm-hmm. And that was more than what I even dreamt about as far as getting a response. It didn't happen right away.
Right.
But I also made it a Facebook post, and people were like, there were people for it, there were people against it. But imagine if we had last March, right, if this city had shut down and limited contact for at least a week, maybe two, maybe we wouldn't have the hundreds of deaths that we have. Maybe the disease would have, stopped or at least slowed down tremendously. So the pandemic has had a huge impact on our industry. I've been working from home since March. I never thought that would ever happen.
How does that make you feel? Because now you are working from home. You got to reinvent the way in which you work now. How does that make you feel now?
It makes me feel good because I've had to adjust because I got bills. I got bills to pay. But it's been an adjustment. I've had to get creative. I've had to do other people's job to make my job work. I've had to use my cell phone sometimes to, shoot video, take pictures. I consider myself a Zoom expert.
I'm not.
90% of my stories, involve doing Zoom interviews. But it's amazing how the world and our world has had to, adapt. Because if you think about it, we were still going into the building and one person caught it and spread it to everybody. Wow, you could shut down the whole television station. So since March, I have to get permission to go to the station, and I'm not allowed inside the station. I can go in the lobby to pick up my mail and equipment and stuff. But in order to keep us safe, we have a whole contingency plan to make sure that we're as safe as possible, even limiting ourselves on interviews.
Right. What do you think about? Give me your take on the chaos of this. Not from a reporter standpoint, but from here, your views and how you feel about the tension, the racial tension that we've had in last year, and what would you suggest moving forward?
Yeah,
being able to get along, I guess, is it's about.
It's been wild. It's been wild as a black man. It's been wild.
What do you mean as a black man has been wild?
It's been an experience. When I was a young journalist, I left Ohio and went to work in Macon, Georgia. Went from the north to the south, and it was an eye-opener.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
And so my for example, back in the 90s, my first big story in Macon, Georgia, that made national news was it was a small town right outside of Macon. They had a big football game. The black football team won. Everybody went to McDonald's. The white McDonald's manager had never seen that many black people before, and in his restaurant, he called the police. The police came and said, "Hey, if you're not buying anything, this is like 300 black kids. If you're not buying anything, you got to leave." But everybody was hungry, right. So everybody was buying, so nobody left. They still weren't comfortable with that, so then they called the fire department. And so they called the fire department. The fire chief ordered everyone to leave, but they were still eating, and so since they wouldn't leave, they took out the hoses and started spraying everybody. And my mother called. She's like, "You need to pack your stuff up, get back up here to Ohio." I said, "Mom, I can't come back." I said, if I'm not here to tell this story, who's going to tell it?
Right.
If I'm not here to fight for justice for these 300 kids who just got fire hoses turned on them in 1991,
there's a problem.
There's a problem, yeah. So I knew, even as a very young journalist, that I had to stay in the fight, and in some cases in 2021 that hasn't changed. Why do you think
this is still going on from a news standpoint? Why do you think this tension, this senseless act that happened and believe me, that's not an isolated incident. Why do you think it's still happening?
I think people aren't comfortable with letting people be who they are. I think we still have some people who actually fear losing their position.
Okay.
And that should not be the case. I've always said I don't want people to treat me differently. I don't want people to treat me special. I don't want people to make exceptions for me. Just be fair. Just give me a fair opportunity. That's all I want. And unfortunately, you have people who aren't willing to do that, who aren't willing to treat people fairly.
What was one of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome in your journey?
As a journalist, or
just in general? Well, let's do both, as a journalist and as a man.
Well, as a journalist, I think it was just being treated fairly and given the opportunity like any other journalist, like my white counterparts. At one point I was working in Portland, Oregon, and I had news managers who didn't consider me as a young black man as intelligent or as smart as my white counterparts. And they treated me differently. One of the reasons I'm not there now. And as a black man, I think it's different when you grow up as a journalist in your community, because you're not seen as a regular black person. And I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yes.
And so people treat you differently. They make exceptions for you when you don't ask for exceptions.
Right.
And then you want other young black men to be treated just like you're being treated, fairly. That's
right.
all. That's it. But I think I got to a point in life, and I'm sure you did too, where you thought, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to tolerate being mistreated anymore. Just, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to demand what is right. And you get to a point where all you want is for people to treat you with the same respect that they want. The golden rule.
I think that's probably where we're at today in the world. I think I was just talking to somebody. I think that bomb just went off because I think people in general of all colors have gotten sick and tired of the bullshit and said, look, we're all humans. Let's try to act like we're civilized humans instead of acting crazy, immature, and miseducated.
Right. Exactly.
I asked you on the show, which was funny how that came. We both going to get our knees done.
I know, right?
Oh my God! It actually scared the hell out of me, to be honest. I heard someone say "peace, peace." I was like, "Who's that?" I guess I call him my name. But I wanted you on the show because I really like what you do as far as the mentoring and grooming young men to be better men and giving that sense of role modelness, because I really didn't have that growing up, and I know how important that is. What do you need from us as men to help you continue your quest to mentor people? What, is there something that I can do or that the viewers can do? They can reach out to you to help you in your quest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for one, I think it behooves all of us, no matter who you are, if you're no matter what your race or your gender is that everybody should be mentoring somebody.
Correct.
Imagine what this world would be if everybody decided, you know what, I'm going to be a mentor to this person, I'm going to be a mentor to that person, because and sometimes it could be just one person.
Right.
It doesn't have to be necessarily something that's organized or through a company or an organization or a community event, but just take somebody under your wings to see how you can help them. Imagine what the world would be if that was the case.
It'd be a hell of a lot better,
wouldn't it?
I guarantee you
it
that.
It really would. And a lot of times, if you can't volunteer your time, make a donation to a program that's known for mentoring. You know, that's just that alone. You know, this past fall for our Project Mr. program, you know, we thought we were going to cancel it because of the pandemic, but it had grown so much, and we had kids on the waiting list, and we're talking about kids from all types of households all across the city. So we normally do 150 students twice a year.
Right.
This past fall, because of, you know, the pandemic, we cut it down to 80. We still had 80, you know,
That's still
7th through 10th graders. It's still a lot.
Yeah.
But we were able to space them out, you know, over at Metropolitan High School. We used the gym, you know, always kept them, you know, masked and 6 feet apart. And it was awesome because we realized that if we had canceled that program, we would be canceling help for, you know, literally dozens of kids that need it.
Jason, can we pull up a website for the viewers so they can donate, reach out, donate their time to help a worthy organization?
You know, Center of Leadership Development, and they have programs not only for young men. The sister program, which started after Project Mr., is called Precious Miss, and they mentor young ladies in the same age group, 7th through 10th graders, and you know, it's a grassroots effort to get our children through, you know, through school. You know, it's mainly targeting African American young men, but we've had, you know, Hispanic, we've had white students, we've had white mentors, you know, that volunteer their time as well. As you can see, we have members of the Metropolitan Police Department who also participate in the program. One of the things that we do in this program, in order to graduate from the program, each student has to complete an individual success plan, and that's basically their plan on how they're going to matriculate through high school and what's their plan after college. It's written by them, it's their plan, it's a blueprint for them, and that helps them succeed as well.
How do the kids actually get involved in it? Is it word of mouth? Are they troubled kids? I mean, what's the protocol for them actually getting into the Center of Leadership? How do they even get there?
It's a matter of just going to the website and signing up. And it's, you know, there is an enrollment fee, but even that's waived if the family can afford it. And some students come back and they repeat Project Mr. They do it 2 or 3 times. And then there are other programs. This is the entry level program for Center of Leadership Development. Then there are other programs. There's College Prep Institute. There's a book club. And if they are successful in completing all those programs, one of the things that we do, we match these students up once they matriculate through high school. We match them up with colleges across the country.
Okay.
And these colleges come and award our students partial and full scholarships where they can go to college and won't have to pay for anything. They don't have to pay any lab fees, no room and board. Their food is taken care of. Their tuition is taken care of. And we've developed those relationships with both HBCUs as well as Ivy League colleges that take the cream of the crop of our students and put them in college.
What do you find some of the biggest issues is that the kids are facing today? Because you naturally just been around for quite some time, and you're grassroots, and another affiliation for the young girls, and you got a deeper connection with these kids, with these young youths, not kids, but these young youths. What are some of the things that you hear them talking about that they're worried about moving into adulthood?
A lot of it is peer pressure. Some of it is social media issues where they're some
whole bunch of likes and they didn't get a whole bunch of likes.
Yeah. You know, their whole world is different. You know, their whole world centers around social media. Just 2 sessions ago, I had a student who came to me and said, he was, concerned because one of his classmates asked him to keep his gun. And he's a 7th grader. And I said, well, where's the gun? And he said, well, it's it's at home under my mattress. And I was like, okay, well, I'm getting ready to call your parents to get that gun out of, away from you, because there's no good for you having a gun.
Right.
But we had developed that relationship where he felt like he could come and talk to me about that, and we ended up hopefully
diffusing it.
Yeah, diffusing it. Because he's a good kid, but he had a bad influence in his life, and that's one of the reasons that we teach them male responsibility, and it's things like that. You can't measure those things in many cases, but these kids leave Project Mister with so much confidence and believe that they can succeed. And they're kids from, like I said, from all across the city. Every school is represented in this program.
I was just getting ready to say that. Is every school represented in this program?
Every single school is represented. Private school, charter school, public school, and even we get students from outside of the Marion County, from the donut counties that come in as well. So it's an excellent program, and one of the testaments is that once these kids go to college and some of them have gone through high school, they come back and be mentors.
That's beautiful. Yeah. You know what? I like I said, I had to have you on the show because, I follow you on social media. I got to be a good friend of yours, and I see what you do. And I think stuff like this needs to come out to the public to see exactly what you've done. Not only there's a bigger picture than you than every day somebody hears about a crime. You really put your heart and soul into bringing forth attention to projects like this and mentoring and grooming our young youth, not just black, not just white, but young men and women in general. If you had to leave, we're going to close out in a minute, but I got to ask this. To leave a positive message to the people about you and what you want to leave for the viewers, what would it be?
Wow. I think it would be, that's a deep question.
This is the Andre The Beast Show. Like, rate, and review.
That's a beast of a question.
We call this beast therapy.
I like that. I think it would be live life like it's your last day,
mm-hmm.
and treat others like you want to be treated.
Fair and simple. I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Andre The Beast Show. This is my best friend, great friend, a mentor for everybody. They need to have a special award outside of the what's that award called he just won?
The Emmys?
There needs to be one for a person that really puts his heart and soul for the last couple of years into really making sure the use of not only Central Indiana but abroad and every other area around here, an opportunity to know that even when we're dealing with craziness as adults, we don't understand the impact of our foolishness is playing on on the children of the day, the children of the world. You have definitely changed that, and you continue to change that. And my deepest thanks goes out to you for doing that. You need to be acknowledged. They need to give you a day in Indiana's history for what you've done to keep these kids safe, to let them know that even though people out there acting crazy, there are still people that care about you and your journey into adulthood.
Thank you.
Ladies and
or
gentlemen.
maybe just give you another Emmy. Number 4.
You know what? Let's start an Emmy, the Andres.
The Andres.
Hey, there you go. The Beast.
The Beasties.
The Beasties. Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mr. Steve Jefferson. I'm Andre Crayton, and this has been the Andre The Beast Show.